Hi and welcome to the first part of the Certificate in Organic Primary Production course. This first part of the course is looking at the principles of organic production. So it's looking at how we can create a really resilient, robust, diverse farming system that produces organic products as a consequence of the design of that farming system. So in this first part we're going to be looking at how ecosystems are organised and the different aspects of the healthy function of the ecosystem. And the reason we're doing that is that if we can design an agricultural system that most closely resembles a natural system, it's going to by nature be more diverse, sustainable, more resilient to disturbances, and require less input of resources from us. So if you look at a forest, for example, a forest doesn't require any input of resources from us to produce wood and nuts and fruit and various animal resources. It produces all of those resources as a consequence of the biological function of that system. So the key concept we're looking at in this first part is the functional diversity of an agricultural system through the biological complexity of it. And we're picking various biological production systems, so fruit trees, nut trees, different animals, grazers, browsers, foragers, and through picking species that are compatible with each other and that create a functional complexity, we can better replicate what you see in nature and create good resilient agricultural production as a consequence of that. So an example of that we can see here with a forest. So in a forest you've got a diversity of plant species, you've got the big canopy trees that are providing shelter and protection and habitat, and then underneath that canopy you've got a variety of sub-canopy trees, shrub trees, herb layers and grasses, particularly on the edge of that forest, and various layers that provide various resources and habitat for different creatures within that system. So when we look at that system, we can then substitute out the species that you would normally see with agriculturally productive ones. So the full-size trees, for example, you can substitute with full-size fruit trees or full-size nut trees. The sub-canopy trees you can substitute for fruit trees that are on dwarfing rootstock. The shrub layer you can substitute for various berry plants. And then you've got herbs and grasses that you can select for various agriculturally productive ones too. And you might not have everything, but by looking at how nature's organised, you can then help create some of this functional complexity by picking compatible plant species that will provide a variety of resources for agricultural production. And then the consequence of this is that they create a compatible guild of plants that help develop a healthy soil ecology. And the foundation behind any good or any well-designed agricultural system is that there's a thriving soil biology. The soil's not being eroded away or depleted of resources. The soil's getting better over time. The soil's being fed organic matter and nutrients and sugars from these plants, and it gets richer, more diverse over time and builds more organic matter within the soil that further supports the continued agricultural production. And that's one of the key differences with conventional agricultural systems where the soil is getting depleted of resources and getting more unhealthy over time. A well-designed organic production system will result in a soil that's getting better over time. So some of the key ideas in the design of this system is picking the habitat that you want to create. So all of our agricultural species either come from a forest or a woodland or a meadow type habitat. So depending on your species that you want to farm, you pick the habitat you want to create and have a look in nature how that habitat is organised and what kind of different plants and animals would naturally exist in that system, and how you can substitute those species for agriculturally productive ones. And you'd select from various grazers and browsers and foragers that you'd see in nature, and you'd substitute them out with agriculturally productive ones, be they sheep or cows or chickens or whatever works. So in effect, we're being guided by the composition of those natural habitats, and we're using the composition of those natural habitats, we're substituting out agriculturally productive ones and trying to recreate some of that functional biological complexity that you'd normally see in those natural systems. And then you're going to get an agricultural system that by its design is going to be organic, it's going to be diverse, it's going to be sustainable. And they're the kind of agricultural systems that we can keep farming for hundreds and thousands of years without having any negative impact on the environment, because there's no waste being produced from those production systems, and they're in balance with other natural ecologies that are found in that area. So in this first part of the course, we're going to be looking at how those ecosystems function and how they're organised, and use that knowledge to help design our own agricultural productive systems.